Hey guys, and welcome back to episode 2 of the Fantasy Line. And I'm here again with my co-host.
Joe.
Isaiah.
And today we got a lot talked about. You guys will be seeing this on Friday, but we're recording this Thursday night after the game. And then we're going to talk about our season-long hot takes. So let's just start with a recap of the game. I think the hot name of this game was Isaiah Likely, obviously. Just an absurd game. I mean, 12 targets, 9 receptions, 111 yards, and a touchdown. That's 26.1 PPR points, and just totally on Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews was irrelevant with only 2 targets, 2 receptions, and 3.4 points. What do you guys think of Isaiah Likely?
I think that honestly, I think Mark Andrews was a little shaken up. Obviously, we know Mark Andrews got in a car accident about 2 weeks ago. Also, he was coming off the injury from last year. I think that Likely is a valid streaming option though, week to week. However, I think next week Andrews is going to get control of his offense and show why he is a top 5 tight end in the league. Just pure talent wise as well. Andrews is he's a great tight end in the league. He's Lamar Jackson's safety blanket. I did like what I saw with Likely though, lining up at outside receiver, getting screen passes. So we'll have to see how it goes forward. But from what I know right now, I think that Andrews is gonna bounce back as that tight end one.
Yeah, I agree. I think Andrews is going to have probably a bounce back game. I know he didn't start practicing until last Friday, so he only had about a week of practice after missing, I think, 2 weeks before that, or a week and a half before that. So I think Andrews is going to bounce back, but Isaiah Likely he had a good game. No matter how he was Lamar's number one option, basically. I know Zay Flowers in the first half was pretty well targeted, and he had a couple receptions. But when the second half started, I think it was more Isaiah Likely than anyone else.
Yeah, and just a crazy ending to that game. Likely would have had another touchdown if it wasn't by a hair of his foot being out of bounds to tie the game. Like, that was just a crazy ending. I think Mark Andrews is still – I feel like you're not going to panic on Mark Andrews. What do you guys think about panicking on Mark Andrews?
I think the panic button should be low. I don't think there's any reason to panic. Obviously, we saw Lamar likes to use his tight ends. I think there was lots of times I need to look at the numbers, but there was a lot of times where Mark Andrews wasn't even on the field. I think that's just due to his lack of practice, lack of ramping up before the game. But I think he gets a couple, even this game, just under his belt, ready to go. He's going to roll out week 1. He's going to play most of the snaps. And obviously, Likely is going to be on the field. They like their 2 tight end sets. So, yeah, I think they're both viable options. However, I have Mark Andrews a lot higher as that tight end 1 still. So I'm not really panicking much with Mark Andrews right now.
Yeah, I think Mark Andrews, he's going to get back. He's going to come back to normal, how he has been the last couple of seasons. I don't see really any problem with him. He was there for almost every key down most of the time. And when it was third down, he was out there. I know on the last play, I don't believe he was out there. But for almost every third down, he was out there. And I noticed one thing that he lined up his lot in the slot instead of being tight end. So like they'd have Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews, which I thought that even I think if once Andrews is 100%, I think – or isn't 100%, I still think that he's going to be Lamar's number one option compared to like Isaiah Likely. It's just that he's just getting back into the rhythm of things.
So do we still think that Mark Andrews is a must start just because he didn't get as much snaps and everything compared to Likely? Because I honestly think Likely might have been on the field more than Andrews this game. Do we think that's just due to the car accident and him just getting back to schedule? Or what do we think about Mark Andrews still being a must start?
Yeah, I think it's exactly what you just said. I think that Mark Andrews is a must start. I think that there's not a whole lot of tight ends that can do what Mark Andrews can do on a week-to-week basis. He can go out there and get you 10 catches, 100 yards, and 2 touchdowns easily. And I just think that this Ravens offense is going to eventually run through Mark Andrews and Zay Flowers, obviously with Lamar running the ball as well and Derrick Henry. But yeah, Mark Andrews, not worried. I'm starting him next week. Must start every week in my opinion.
Yeah, I fully agree. Like, just because he has one bad game doesn't mean I'm going to bench him. Like George Kittle, he has those spike weeks where he scores 2 points, but it's like you're not going to really bench him because he has that opportunity to go 23, 30 plus points in any game. So I feel like Mark Andrews is like that. Probably more right now because he wasn't really playing, probably ramping up. But once he becomes more consistent, I think he's always going to be the number one. I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, I agree. But I think definitely if you have Mark Andrews on your team, you're definitely stashing Likely. I think honestly, Likely might be the number one waiver wire pickup this week just off what he did with Mark Andrews there. I get Mark Andrews a little shaken up, but that performance, it just seemed like he is in the role he could take over. If Mark Andrews gets hurt, I mean, that could be a league winner. I mean, putting up weekly weeks like he did this week. But yeah, that's what we think about Likely. Okay, let's move on to Zay Flowers, Lamar Jackson's second most targeted player. He had 10 targets, 6 receptions, 37 yards, 2 rush attempts, 14 rush yards, and 11.1 points. What are you guys' thoughts on Zay Flowers this week?
I liked what I saw from Zay Flowers. He's got that. He's really quick and explosive off the line. Put him against a linebacker, he's going to dominate all day. I'm not extremely high on Zay Flowers just in general. I think that this offense is majorly going to run through Lamar, through Derrick Henry, and through Mark Andrews. I mean, I have Zay. I mean, he's a solid wide receiver too, in my opinion. I don't think he's going to crack into that wide receiver one option, just because of how many pieces are on this offense and how the offense is built. Just going to run it down the middle of the field with Derrick Henry, play action pass. Lamar gets out the field, toss it to Mark Andrews. Or I mean, now we saw Isaiah Likely. But yeah, I mean, I liked what I saw. I liked the 10 targets, obviously. That's a good number right there. But I'll have to see. And if he gets another 10 target game, if he comes out and drops more 10 targets, gets more targets, and then I'm probably going to raise him up in my rankings. So.
I think one thing about Zay Flowers is he got a lot of like short balls thrown at him. Like none of them were really deep. I know he had like one across the middle. I think they're kind of using him wrong. I think he needs to be more down like the middle of the field. At least put him more in the middle of the field instead of just little like screen passes to him. I feel like it's kind of like he has the receptions, but he doesn't really have the yards with those receptions. So I think Zay Flowers is just like solid as of right now. I think it's just the way that they're using him is just he has the potential to be really good. Is just him getting 6 catches and only 37 yards is not really like gonna cut it. I don't think.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw, but the stat Lamar Jackson through the first half of the game was averaging 1 yard, like above the line of scrimmage per hit passes. So he was checking it down behind line of scrimmage almost every single time, not really pushing the ball downfield. So I think that just Ravens offense as a whole needs to push the ball downfield more. I think that their offensive line is actually a very big problem. As we saw tonight, Chris Jones was just dominating that line, running through it like butter. So I think that that's a big problem that needs to be fixed in order for them to be able to get the ball out to Zay Flowers more over the middle of the field.
Yeah, I think it's just week 1 for the offensive line. Like it's the right guard, the right tackle. I believe was a rookie. So I think it's just, I think give them time. I still think they're still going to be a solid offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just building that chemistry because I mean 3 of their starters are gone. Mm-hmm. They just need time, but yeah, their offensive line definitely needs work. But my take, I mean, if you watch the game, the first half, I thought Zay Flowers was amazing. I mean, he had all his stats the first half. I was like, oh my God, he's like a must draft. Like, I can't believe I don't have enough Zay Flowers. And I thought he was just a target hog. But that second half, he got nothing. He didn't have a reception. They didn't like involvement. He was just like a missing piece. And yeah, I think the Ravens offense, I mean, they put like 20 points, but I mean, if you watch that game, I don't think they look too good with just the amount of pieces they have. But I would still start Zay Flowers as a flex. I feel like he's a solid flex play. I don't know if he's a solid wide receiver 2 yet, in my opinion. Just what happened in that full game, and we saw Lamar Jackson's just passing accuracy. It just wasn't there today. As you saw, multiple missed open touchdowns, almost killed Isaiah Likely on that deep crosser in the end zone. When those are just easy points that they could have had if he just throws a little more accurate ball. Well, moving into Lamar Jackson and how he played today, Lamar Jackson was 26 for 41, 273 yards, a passing touchdown. 16 carries, 122 yards, one fumble, putting up 28 fantasy points. What is your guys' take on Lamar Jackson this game?
I mean, the dude was running the ball a lot. This was like and he was taking hits too. He wasn't. I mean, there was times where I would see him like putting the shoulder down, knocking into some dudes. I like Lamar. Lamar, it was just like a classic Lamar game in my opinion. Obviously, the missed throws kind of hurt him a little bit, and the Ravens team just in general. Obviously, they had the Zay Flowers wide open touchdown at the end of the game. The likely touchdown at the end. It was literally like less than half an inch away from scoring. But yeah, I mean, Lamar getting rushing, that's what he does. I mean, Lamar is going to be a top 5 quarterback in my opinion this year, moving forward. So, yeah.
I think Lamar is good. I don't know if he can stay consistent with like running the ball, taking 16 carries, and he got hit on a lot of those carries. Like, I don't think Lamar Jackson's really built to last for the entire season like that. I mean, he could. He has. I just don't see that being possible for him right now. But I do think that, again, he's a top 5 quarterback when he's healthy. But if he continues taking those hits, I feel like he's not going to really, he's going to get hurt. Because we've seen that in the past from him, especially he lost all this weight this last summer. So it's going to play, I think it's going to play a bigger role because last year I know he was bigger and then he cut weight because he said he felt heavy. One thing I like to say is I felt like the entire Ravens offense was off the entire night. Like they had 4 illegal formation calls on their first drive.
Mm-hmm.
Lamar missing open balls. Like he had, the one to Isaiah Likely, if he would have thrown a bullet pass to him or like a little touch pass to him, he's open. Again with Zay Flowers on the end, missed him wide open, So I feel like this whole Ravens offense was a little bit off. But I do see them bouncing back after like kind of just getting sharper on their offense.
Yeah, I think Lamar Jackson, fantasy purposes, I think he's a must start every week. There's no reason you bench him. You probably drafted him in the 4th, 5th round. I mean, his passing game just wasn't there, but for a quarterback to put up 16 rushes, over 100 rushing yards, that's just fantasy gold. That's what you look for. You always look for the rushing upside, especially if you're in a 4-point per passing touchdown. I mean, Lamar's going to be the QB1 this week. I don't think we have to watch any more games, just those stats alone. But speaking on running, let's move into the running backs. Let's talk about Derrick Henry and his performance. He had 13 attempts, 46 yards, 1 touchdown. He had 2 targets, no receptions, putting up 10.6 fantasy points. What is your guys' take on Derrick Henry?
I wasn't impressed personally. I mean, we just saw that he looks sluggish on the field, in my opinion. He's going to get touchdowns though. Obviously, as we saw in that first drive, he got that 3-yard touchdown. But with the combination of this offensive line, I think that as time goes on, Derrick Henry's going to look better on the field just because, like, I feel like every time they'd hand the ball, there'd be like 3 dudes just in his face immediately. And I was just like, man, like, this is just not looking too good for Derrick Henry. There's no explosive plays that I can think of. Probably the highest rush of like 9 yards. He had 2 targets. There were just little swing passes at the side. I think both of them got tipped. But yeah, nothing. I wasn't impressed. I just hope that this offensive line can get back together and Derrick Henry can get it going. That's my hope right now.
I think drafting Derrick Henry, we kind of had this feeling about how he was going to play. And like this was definitely in the range of outcomes of him, scoring a rushing touchdown, 50 yards. Yeah, and today he had 46. So I feel like people going in kind of had a feeling like, okay, he's not the old Derrick Henry. Whole new offensive line, which I do feel like they are all going to get better over time. So later in the season, Derrick Henry is going to be a lot better. But I think this is kind of what we expected as, this is what we expected from Derrick Henry. Is just he's not his old self. He's still good. He's still 6'3", 250. Like that's, as a running back, is insane. So I think Derrick Henry, and I think as the season goes on, Derrick Henry is going to get better. He's a big bruising back. Like they running the ball near November, December, January. Like that's going to be probably a big part of their offense. And I feel like Derrick Henry is going to play a big role in that.
Yeah, I agree. I just think the Ravens just weren't there. Back to what Isaiah was saying, the offense wasn't there, especially versus the Chiefs, the best team in the NFL as of now. I feel like they just weren't there. Playing down points the whole game. It's not really much of Derrick Henry's style. I think if the Ravens were winning, we would have saw a lot more Derrick Henry touches and attempts, as he only had 13. But I think it's pretty much what we expect. Not as much PPR work, not as much receptions. But the other back looked great tonight. Justice Hill. He only had 1 attempt, 3 yards, but he did have 8 targets, 6 receptions, 52 yards, and 11.5 fantasy points. Do you guys think that Justice Hill is going to be fantasy relevant for the future?
I think that he could be someone, if you are like in a deep league and you are shallow at running back, I think he could be someone you can definitely look at. Obviously, the Ravens lost Gus Edwards. They lost J.K. Dobbins. So Justice Hill is going to be that priority backup for Derrick Henry. And if you have Derrick Henry, I would give Justice Hill a look just because it looks like if Derrick Henry were to go down, Justice Hill is going to be that 3-down back for the Ravens. But yeah, I don't think he's going to be anything crazy. He'll probably get some receptions here and there. He's not going to be handling the ball like on the goal line or short down distances whatsoever. He'll be in there for second and long, third and long plays. So yeah, I don't think he's going to be anything crazy. Just if you want to look his way in the waivers this week, I would definitely give him a look.
Yeah, I think if you're short on running back, I think he's definitely a good option, at least just to stash on your bench in case something happens to Derrick Henry. Or say if you need to play him on week, I feel like he can just put up points like how he did today. 6 receptions, 52 yards, 11 points. I think that's solid, especially if you need someone in the running back position.
Yeah, I agree with you guys' takes. I think Justice Hill's worth a stash. Of course, just for his receiving upside, that's pretty much why you're getting him. I think he's more viable in PPR formats rather than non-PPR formats, just because what he does, all he does is catch balls. But okay, let's look at the Chiefs and let's see how they did. The big name for the Chiefs, one of the big names, I think the rookie Xavier Worthy. Just starting off the game, that first drive. His stats: he has 1 rush, 21 yards, a touchdown, 2 receptions, 47 yards, a touchdown, 3 total targets, and 20 fantasy points. What are you guys' thoughts on Xavier Worthy tonight?
Watching the game, I was drawing parallels to Christian Watson that one year where every touch he got was like a touchdown. I feel like there was like a 5-week stretch where he had probably like 15 touches and like 9 touchdowns. And I was just kind of reminded of that while I was watching this game tonight. Obviously, they're different players on different offenses. But I think that this efficiency of touchdowns obviously is not going to stick. Like he had three total opportunities and he had 2 touchdowns. That's not going to happen every week. The speed was there. This man was flying down the field. If you watch that end around play, he got to that end zone quick and it was like a bolt of lightning. He was going fast. The touchdown play was just like a broken coverage. The corner thought he had a safety over top. He didn't. Easy touchdown right there. He also had like a 12-yard catch. Nothing crazy. I think that once Hollywood Brown comes back into this offense, that his production is going to probably be reduced. And I think that Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce, and Isaiah Pacheco will run this offense. There's lots of mouths to feed. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes can get it done. But I think there's going to be lots of weeks like this where he gets really, really low volume, but he'll score 2 touchdowns. And it's going to be really hard to predict.
Yeah, I feel the same way about Xavier Worthy. He's going to have those explosive weeks, and there's going to be those weeks probably where he has duds. It's just, a couple points. They did show how they were going to use Xavier Worthy, with the end around in the very beginning, took that to the crib. Again, I just think he's going to be very hit or miss. It's just, if you need someone to play him, but he's not the guy I think I'd start weekly. But if you do, that'd be, you're hoping for those upside weeks where he just explodes for 2 touchdowns like how he did tonight.
Yeah, me personally, I'm an Xavier Worthy hater. I versed him in fantasy tonight. It just sucks just seeing him grabbed 2 touchdowns with only 3 opportunities. It's just like, of course, they had to be touchdowns, those big plays, putting up that 20 fantasy points. But if I have him on my team, I mean, he's pretty much just boom or bust. I think he only really got 3 opportunities too because Hollywood Brown was out. I'm personally really high on Hollywood Brown and just what he's capable of. But I think that Xavier Worthy, I'm not starting him yet until I see what happens with Hollywood Brown, just with these opportunities and what happened.
Yeah. And I will
Yeah.
say, if there's someone in your league who is like, and you have Xavier Worthy, and someone in your league is like, dude, let me get Xavier Worthy, I would trade him right now and try to get something, some sort of an upgrade. Because once Hollywood Brown comes back, I just don't see. I think that the risk of starting him is going to be too high for your team because he could easily drop a dud. If you get someone who is just solid for your team, I'd rather take that all day.
So do you guys think that Xavier Worthy is a must-start moving forward, or where do we value him?
No, I don't think he's a must-start. I think that he's a if you need to start him, he's a flex option for you. Obviously, people are going to be, oh, we scored 2 touchdowns. Yeah, he only had 3 opportunities. That's not an efficiency that can withstand in the NFL. Obviously, like I said before, the Christian Watson thing, he did it for like 5 weeks. So if you want to believe in that and ride Xavier Worthy for like 5 weeks, be my guest. But personally, I'm not starting Xavier Worthy until I see more from him.
Yeah, I fully agree. I feel like this next receiver, though, he really showed that he is the number 1 option on this team, even with, Travis Kelce there. Rashee Rice had quite a game. 9 targets, 7 receptions, 103 yards. I know he was like slant boy out there today, but he showed that he's right now Mahomes' most trusted weapon, besides Kelce, of course. I think Rashee Rice was looked at a lot. There's a couple missed opportunities where if Rashee Rice would have caught it, he would have had more yards. But I think today was a strong game by Rashee Rice. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. He looked like primetime Michael Thomas out there. Just, I mean, going back to last episode, saying that he's your most drafted player. Hopefully, you plugged him into all your lineups because that 17 fantasy points, drafting him in the 7th, 8th round, that's amazing. I think knowing this now that he would be going in the third, 4th round, because I mean, just with his connection with Mahomes, no suspension, it's probably gonna get pushed to next year. I think he was a great pick, possible league winning pick, just the way he was playing, just 10 targets. Is that what he had? Yeah. No, 9 targets.
9.
But yeah, he also had some drop passes. But yeah, I think he's a great I think I'm plugging him into my starting lineup every week.
Yeah. That drive pass is looking real nice right now in the 7th round. Obviously, we saw in underdog drafts. If you guys played best ball, he was going in like the 3rd round in those drafts. So I think that if you got if you got Rashee Rice, you got yourself a wide receiver, low end wide receiver 1 with high end upside. Maybe just a high end wide receiver 2. He was balling tonight. He was getting run after catch. He was eating up the linebackers all day in the middle of the field. Primetime Michael Thomas, like Alex was saying. And yeah, I think Rashee Rice is going to be really good this year. I'm kind of down that I didn't get him in any of my leagues. But yeah, man, he's good. He's just a good player in general. So I like what I saw tonight.
I think Rashee Rice is a must start every week, confidently. I mean, especially against the Ravens defense, who I know they have a new defensive coordinator this year, but the Ravens defense last year was good. And it's not like they lost too many pieces. Like they still had Roquan Smith there. They had their core defensive pieces there, and he still ate them up in the middle of the field. So at this point, I think Rashee Rice is an easily number 1 wide receiver for me.
Yeah,
I definitely about him. Just talking about him, you're down there smirking and everything. Seems like you
most cheesing down here over Rashee Rice.
Had a good day starting him, but enough Rashee Rice talk. Let's talk a little bit about their big name tight end, Taylor Swift's boyfriend, Travis Kelce. 4 targets, 3 receptions, 34 yards, only 6 fantasy points. he must have just been listening to Taylor Swift music on the sideline because there was trouble today. I mean, that he just looked like a decoy running out there. He just wanted to go home to his little girlfriend Taylor Swift. But yeah, what do you guys think of Travis Kelce tonight?
Every time the ball was thrown to a white dude wearing number 80 something, I was like, oh, that's Travis Kelce. No, it was anyone other than Travis Kelce. It was Justin Watson. It was Noah Gray. It was all these other dudes. And I'm like, where is Travis Kelce on this game? This looked a lot like last year. As an owner of Travis Kelce last year, I was really upset with what I had. There was games where he would do this. He would go out, get 3 receptions, 36 yards. You're like, what happened to Travis Kelce? And obviously there was that one play where Mahomes scrambled out, found Kelce for like 20 yards. That was a great play. But then it's like nothing happened after that. And I think it's honestly just Kelce's production has just slowly decreased over the last year and a half. And I think that's just something that you expect with this 35-year-old tight end. But yeah, obviously I still have Kelce. He's Travis Kelce. Like, he's going to go out there. He's going to put up fantasy points. He's still a must start. You're never going to bench Travis Kelce. But I think that for where he was being drafted, you're almost kind of pinched into starting him every week. Like, for example, if you pick up Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews is like questionable for the game, like, are you going to start Travis Kelce or Isaiah Likely? That's a good question. Like, but you're almost pinched into starting Kelce just because of where you drafted him at in the 3rd, 4th round. So I think it's going to be hard to own Travis Kelce this year. Yeah, that's my thoughts on it. It's going to be a little bit annoying.
Yeah, I agree with Joe. At the price that people got him, you have to start him. So like, same thing with Andrews. I know Andrews is a round or 2 later, but Andrews is still like a must start. Like, these tight ends are just too good not to be just sitting on your bench. I think Travis Kelce, again, I kind of said in the last video talking about how I think Rashee Rice is going to be really good. I think Travis Kelce is going to get a lesser role. I know recently in the news he just came out that he's saying he didn't want a lesser role and he's going to continue playing. But I think the grand scheme of things, I feel like he is going to get a lesser role. As of now, probably when it gets closer to playoffs, he probably start ramping up more, getting ready for the playoffs. But I think, like, again, like right now, Rashee Rice is Mahomes' number 1 target, but I feel like Kelce is still Mahomes' guy. Like, that play when Mahomes was scrambling around, he threw it to Kelce. So it's like Kelce is always going to be that insurance option for Mahomes. So I feel like there is still like good upside there. He's probably not going to put up his monsters weeks that he has the past couple years, but he's still going to be it's going to be a solid tight end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't have too much of Kelce myself, but if I drafted Kelce in the 3rd, 4th round, you got to start him. You use that pick on him. You just can't really bench Kelce, but I think if I have him, I'm a little worried after week 1, just with how everything played out. It looked more like maybe the Chiefs are trying to maintain him throughout the season, where he's not getting the amount of target share that he usually gets, because this was definitely not a Kelce game. Obviously, after week 2, everything could change. Maybe this was just a down week. But I am a little worried after this week. He also looked a lot skinnier out there. Just if you watch the game, he just looked skinnier. He missed a block. They were running a lot of 2 tight end sets. Noah Gray got some looks. I think they probably had around the same amount of fantasy points. Kelce probably had a little more. But yeah, that's what I think about Kelce. He's still a must start. Still probably a top 5 tight end. Just got to see what happens with him. But moving on to the running back, Isaiah Pacheco. He had 15 rush attempts, 45 rushing yards, a rushing touchdown, 2 receptions, 33 yards, 15 fantasy points. How are we feeling about Pacheco?
This is what you expect for Pacheco. Like, he's going to get all the volume there. I didn't see Samaje Perine. I think he was in there for a couple plays. He got 1 catch for like 8 yards. Kind of what I was saying on the last podcast. I think this is Pacheco's backfield. And Pacheco's going to dominate the touches. 3rd down role. He's got the 3rd down role. He's got the red zone role, as we saw. So yeah, this is a solid game. 15 PPR points. I'll take that anytime, any day. And he obviously has the upside to break those big plays. He's got that 4.4. I think he's at 4.4 speed. So yeah, I like Pacheco, and I just like what I saw from him today.
Yeah, Pacheco. Everybody hyped him up to be as this running back who's going to get almost all the touches in the backfield, and he was that. Even people were worried about Samaje Perine. Samaje Perine didn't play much of a role. Isaiah Pacheco would have had more points too if he would have caught that that ball up the sideline that he just dropped. So I think Isaiah Pacheco, he's gonna be a beast this season.
100%.
Yeah, I think this is what you expect drafting him. I mean, right now Pacheco ranked as a high end RB2, low end RB1. But I mean, yeah, that's what we expect. I mean, he had a little injury happen, not too crazy one in the medical tent, but then he's out the next play, running hard like usual. So yeah, no worries there. But now let's talk about the $500 million man, Patrick Mahomes. 291 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, an interception, 2 rush attempts, 3 rush yards, and a reception, and scoring 19 fantasy points. How are we feeling about Mahomes after week 1?
That reception really hurt in those people versus Mahomes in PPR leagues this week. But I mean, he's Patrick Mahomes. I'm not worried about him whatsoever. I think that his fantasy production last year was down, and this looked a lot like last year. The Chiefs' defense is amazing. Their defense is going to hold teams all year long, I think, just like they did last year, led by Steve Spagnuolo. And I think that factors into the Chiefs' offense not having to push the ball downfield. I think that's going to lead to less big Patrick Mahomes games. Like I said before, the Chiefs' offense was on a down year last year, and there is due for positive regression. So I know I'm a believer that's going to happen. But from what I saw tonight, I'm not worried. The touchdowns will come from Mahomes. So yeah, I'm not worried, but it's not going to be his rookie or first four years in the league fantasy production.
I think the complete opposite. I really love Patrick Mahomes this season. I feel like he is going to. I know today was a slow game, bad game, not even really a bad game. It was just not a Mahomes games that we all expect. But he was also going against a top defense last year. Like this defense, they still have the key core pieces of the defense last year. So I feel like it's a tough defense to play against. Mahomes didn't play bad. Like 76% of his passes were complete, almost 300 yards. The interception was bad, but I feel like he's still going to be. I think he's gonna ramp it up. I feel like he's going to play better. He's going to score more touchdowns at least, especially once Hollywood Brown comes back. Still Xavier Worthy. We don't know yet really how good he can be. I guess if he does continue this, Mahomes' upset I feel like would be even higher because they had Tyreek Hill 2.0. So I feel like again as the season goes on, I believe Patrick Mahomes is going to get better.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, just a decent outing, 19 points, just not what you're expecting if you draft Mahomes, but also with Hollywood Brown out, I think once he comes back, it's a great addition for Mahomes. I just love the prospect that Hollywood Brown is, and I think another deep threat open up the middle for Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce. But yeah, now let's move on to our season-long hot takes.
So my hot take of the season is Will Levis and the Tennessee Titans offense. I like him this year. I know last year Will Levis didn't really play the best. It was also his rookie year. He played 9 games, and he averaged 200 yards in those 9 games. But the team was ran by Mike Vrabel, very old school head coach, wants to run the ball down your throat. He also had Derrick Henry, who, again, he's a big dude who can run. So why not give it to Derrick Henry all the time? So I feel like now that basically the old regime's gone, all the old coaching staff's gone, they have a new offense, they have a new head coach, Brian Callahan, and they have a new offensive coordinator. I feel like this team's really going to explode, especially looking in the past from who and where Brian Callahan has coached. In 2019, he coached for 2016 through 17, he coached with Matthew Stafford, or with the Lions. He was a QB coach, and that season, Matthew Stafford threw for 4,000 yards. 2018, he was another QB coach for Derek Carr, threw for another 4,000 yards. In 2019, he joined the Bengals as their offensive coordinator. That year, they had Andy Dalton as their quarterback, only threw for 3,400 yards. Not well. But that following season is when they drafted Joe Burrow. During the 10-game stretch that they had Joe Burrow threw 200 and he threw around 269 yards per game. He only played 10 games. On that pace, Joe Burrow was on the pace of throwing for 4,300 yards. 2021, Joe Burrow, full healthy season, threw for 4,611 yards. In the season after that, he threw for another 4,527 yards. Last season, again, Joe Burrow was just short of reaching that 4,000-yard goal. Joe Burrow was also hurt, and all of his weapons were hurt, and he only played 10 games. But if he would have played if he was on the same pace as he was for the 10 games, he would have had 3,900 yards. So I feel like this right here shows that Brian Callahan is a really offensive coach, and he's a very pass-heavy new style of coaching. With this, Will Levis has a big arm. He loves throwing the rock. And with that, the team signed, because Will Levis loves throwing the rock, they signed Calvin Ridley and Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd's been in the Brian Callahan offense before when he was playing for the Bengals. And I feel like he already knows the offense. So it's going to work well, especially for Will Levis just learning it. And I feel like, honestly, Tyler Boyd could be Will Levis's go-to guy in the very beginning, especially with D-Hop being out. I know he started practicing this week, but just came out that he has an MCL tear. So we don't really know how it's really going to affect him. He still has a couple pieces that were on the team last year, like Tajay Spears and Chiggy from their tight end. Chiggy's all right. I think Spears is good. Oh, they also added Pollard. Pollard's a good pass catching back. I know last season he had a down year, but I think Pollard can bounce back this season. Another reason why I think Will Levis is going to have a really good year is because of their conference. The AFC South's competitive. They have the Colts, the Texans, and the Jags. The Texans, they're going to be able to put up points with C.J. Stroud as their quarterback. They have C.J. Stroud, Diggs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Joe Mixon, and Dalton Schultz. So that the offense is going to score. So if you want to be competitive, you got to score on that team, score with that team. The Colts, again, pretty good offensively. If Anthony Richardson stays healthy, that can be a good offensive team. Jags, again, the Jags are solid. They could be a good offensive team. We'll see how the offense runs with Calvin Ridley now leaving the team. I know Brian Thomas is there, but I still feel like that's a competitive conference. And so with all this being said, I think Will Levis is going to explode this season. I can easily see him going for over 4,000 yards. His line right now at Underdog is 3,425 passing yards. I see him passing that easily. Same thing, touchdowns. I'm going for 25 to 30 touchdowns in this offense. On Underdog, his passing line's 21 passing touchdowns. I think that this will lead. I think Will Levis is going to have a phenomenal season. I think he's going to have a year 2 explosion. Team might not be good. I feel like he's just gonna sling the rock though. What do you guys think?
Yeah. Go on, Alex. You can go.
I mean, I think Will Levis, I think he's in for a prime role. I mean, the DeAndre Hopkins injury definitely hurts a little bit, but I mean, the signing of Calvin Ridley, I thought Calvin Ridley was great on the Jags last year. And I mean, they also bring Tyler Boyd, a little sneaky wide receiver, little slot receiver who can catch the ball, run good routes. Yeah, I mean, I could see Will Levis is prime for a breakout year this year, throwing for over 4,000 yards. Do you think that they win the division? Where do you think they rank in their division? Against the Colts, Titans.
I think the Texans are so good. I think they could. I know their defense is good too. Like the Titans revamped their defense with drafting L'Jarius Sneed trading for L'Jarius Sneed, and I believe they picked up a safety too, who was on the free agency. So I think they could be competitive with the Texans this year. I think there are going to be some really good games.
Yeah, that's just a tough division. I mean, you got the Texans, the Colts, Titans, and Jags. Yeah, but I think if there's a year for Will Levis to blow up, it's this year. I mean, he's got the weapons to do it. It's going to be more of passing focus. You said bring Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears, good passing down, receiving running backs. Yeah, Joe, what do you think?
So just looking at this team in general and how Will Levis likes to sling the rock, I think back to the Jameis Winston led Buccaneers. Jameis Winston throws that ball deep, and he had two good receivers, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and there was a year where Jameis Winston threw for 5,000 yards, but he led the league in interceptions. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he had 35 interceptions, but he also had like 45 touchdowns.
So it
So
was
and
a
he was
30 and 30 year when he
yeah,
threw.
it was his 30 year. So I think back to that. I can see that as a realistic possibility for Will Levis, just slinging that rock. Although he's going to throw interceptions, he's going to be getting yardage. He's going to be getting touchdowns. He's got the two receivers. He's got Calvin Ridley and D-Hop, obviously two older receivers. But I think I'm a believer in Calvin Ridley this year. I have Calvin Ridley in like 3 out of my 4 leagues. I'm a firm believer that Calvin Ridley is going to have a breakout year with this new offense, and the Titans under Mike Vrabel they're going to be a good team. They're going to score lots of points. They're going to be explosive, but at times Will Levis is going to throw picks as well. So yeah, I like that take, and I really do see the similarities between that Bucs offense led by Jameis Winston.
Yeah, I think I think Calvin Ridley's fine. Like he's a good player. Like he's not a superstar. He's not a bum. I feel like he's just above average player. I've never been a too big fan of Calvin Ridley, but I think we'll see what he does this season. I think this season could mean a lot, especially like me, like I've always been kind of down on Calvin Ridley, just thinking like he's good. He's not elite though. He's nowhere near the elites, but he's a solid player.
Yeah, I can see a little disagreement going on here between Isaiah and Joe. But all right, now let's get spicy. Let's get into my hot take. I think Amari Cooper is going to put up 100 receptions and 1,500 yards and will be a league winner for your fantasy leagues this year. I mean, Cooper's coming off a 72 reception, 1,250-yard season while only playing 15 games. I get most of this was with Joe Flacco, and Joe Flacco is obviously a fantasy receiver like god tier because he just slings the ball for 400 yards a game, 3 interceptions. But
like
also, yeah, just that Jameis Winston, Will Levis like them. But Deshaun Watson, he was hurt most of the year, only playing 5 full games. But this comes down to my trust in Deshaun Watson. I mean, Watson coming off of the last 3 years, only playing a total of 12 games. I mean, we go back to 2 years ago, his focus wasn't on the field. It was more about some off the field, but we won't get too much into that. But he really hasn't had the time to really get back into rhythm or get anything going. If we look back to 2020, he played 16 games and threw for 4,823 yards. And in 2019, he played 15 games, threw for 3,852 yards. And in 2018, he threw for 4,165 yards. Also looking back at what Watson was doing with DeAndre Hopkins as the prime receiver, in 2020, Hopkins had 115 reception and 1,407 yards. In 2019, he had 104 receptions, 1,165 yards. And in 2019. And then 2018, he had 115 receptions, 1,572 yards. I get Hopkins is a generational talent, but I truly do believe Cooper is one of the most underrated receivers in the league, as he's just been bouncing from the Raiders to the Cowboys to the Browns. It was traded for a 5th-round pick like it was nothing. But now with Chubb hurt, I get they have Jerome Ford, but Ford's obviously no Chubb. Chubb's, I think, one of the top 3 most skilled back in the league, averaging the most yards per carry. I think it's around 5 yards per carry. And really the only offseason addition is Jerry Jeudy to this Browns offense. But I don't think he's going to have a big impact on Cooper's production, as I feel like Amari is the clear wide receiver 1. I still think Amari Cooper dominates these targets. I mean, I think if Deshaun Watson plays a full year, I think Amari Cooper will explode just because I think Jerry Jeudy helps him as in opening the passing down work and everything. And we still don't have a timetable on Nick Chubb's return. So that's at least 4 weeks that there's going to be no Chubb, maybe longer. But I think this is going to force Deshaun Watson to start throwing the ball. And I think Watson is just tired of running the ball. He hasn't really got anything going, no good stats, no nothing. So coming off that big contract, guaranteed money, I think Watson's looking to get something going, and I think Amari Cooper is going to have a huge year this year. What do you guys think of the hot take?
I don't hate it. I don't hate the take. I will say that Cooper's production last year, he had 270 yards in one game. So I mean, if you take that into effect, he has like 1,000 yards. If he has just a regular like 100-yard game, he has like 1,000 yards on the season. But yeah, like that's in his possibility. Like 270 yards in one game, that's ridiculous. That's like fantasy records right there. But Amari Cooper, he's good. He's been good his whole career. I agree with the underrated take. I think he's one of the most underrated receivers in the league, just when it comes to just pure talent. And this Browns offense, their defense is amazing. Honestly, I think they have one of the best defenses in the entire NFL, led by Myles Garrett, obviously. And I think this defense is going to hold teams, as we saw last year. And I think that's not going to force the Browns to throw the ball as much as you may be thinking. Doesn't mean that I don't think Cooper's going to ball out this year. I think Cooper is going to ball out this year. 1,500 yards is it's a lot of yards, man. That's a hard mark to reach. Only a couple receivers do that each year. So I don't know if I agree with the 1,500 yards, but I can see him getting 100 receptions easily this year.
Yeah, I think it comes down to Deshaun Watson. Let's see how he plays coming off of his. I believe he had shoulder surgery. And I know it's been lingering this entire offseason. There's those reports where it's like he's at practice, he's not at practice. He has shoulder soreness, he's back at practice. So I think it's going to come down to see what happens with Deshaun Watson. Let's see how he plays, as he's barely played football.
Mm-hmm.
I think I do have trust in Deshaun Watson this year. I feel like he is going to have a bounce back season. I don't see Amari Cooper having 1,500 yards. I view him as the same as Calvin Ridley, just better than Calvin. I view him the next step up above Calvin Ridley. I do think that Amari Cooper is a really solid player. Again, 1,500 yards, especially in this kind of run-heavy offense,
it's a lot of yards.
A ton, especially with Njoku there. Still, like Njoku's still there. They added Jerry Jeudy. I don't think Jerry Jeudy's much of a competition. Elijah Moore is still there, but he's not good either. But I guess we're going to see how Jerry Jeudy does, because all this hype. Everybody loves Jerry Jeudy. There's hype around him that he could have a good season, possibly on a new team. But I think 1,500 yards is a lot. I can see him getting 100 catches, but I think that is a hot take.
Yeah, I think that in Kevin Stefanski's offense, he likes to run the ball, and 1,500 yards, man. If you look at a picture of Deshaun Watson, you're going to see a blue medical tent. And I just think that's going to be hard to get. You're banking a lot on Deshaun Watson bouncing back. He hasn't played real football in like 3 years. This dude's been off the field with off-the-field issues, with injuries. I want to see it from Watson before I commit to saying Cooper's going to go for 1,500 yards. But nevertheless, I think Cooper's going to be a solid wide receiver too.
I mean, if we're looking back at 2018, I know we're going back in time a little bit. He threw for 4,165 yards. And out of that 4,165 yards, DeAndre Hopkins had 1,572 yards, around 40% of his total yards. So I think when Watson has his one, he's gonna fire it. I mean, we saw last year Amari Cooper's that deep threat, putting up that 270-yard game. I think if Watson gets in the groove, we're gonna look back on this and be like, "Damn, Alex was right about this hot take." That's a league winner here.
Yes, we will see.
Okay, next hot take.
Do you think that if Jameis Winston comes in, that he has a chance to do it?
I think so, 100%.
I mean, just
more likely chance to do it than with Deshaun Watson.
I think that if Jameis Winston goes to any team, any receiver on that team could get 2,000 yards. Jameis Winston is fantasy gold, bro. I had a lot of it. I had Olave last year, and when Jameis Winston came on the field, I was like, "Here we go." He threw like 4 straight deep balls to Chris Olave. 3 of them got intercepted, but I don't care. I'm taking that all day.
He slings the rock.
I feel like it would help. I mean, we just see those pregame speeches, and they're absolutely elite. So I think that does help. But, I mean, just looking back, I mean, there was a time where we're all like, Deshaun Watson is right there with Patrick Mahomes. Top 3 quarterback in the league. So, I mean, if Watson just gets his mind focused, ready to play some football, I think there's a chance. I mean, that's why it's a hot take. But
yeah, 100%.
He has to stop giving them massages.
Yeah.
All right. I guess we'll be moving on to my hot take now. And so for my hot take this year, it has to do with Brian Thomas Jr., the rookie on the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I see Brian Thomas Jr. finishing as a top 15 wide receiver in PPR formats this year. Being drafted at like the 11th round. He's from Wide Receiver University, LSU. Obviously, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, top elite prospects have came from this college. And this man is 6'4", 205 pounds. He led the NCAA in touchdowns last year with 17 touchdowns. He's going to be that deep threat for Trevor Lawrence this year. And I can see him just bomb after bomb. Trevor Lawrence going to be slinging that rock. Brian Thomas down the field. He's an elite catch radius. If you watch his stats in college, this man was dominating. That's like doing him short. He was just elite on the field. And yeah, the offense has lost Calvin Ridley. And coming into an offense they also signed Gabe Davis. Christian Kirk's going to be that slot guy. He's not going to be deep field, down the field at all. Gabe Davis has been a medical tent for most of his career as well. So I can see Brian Thomas building that rapport with Trevor Lawrence this year. And honestly, being that breakout rookie receiver, there's always one every year. Think to Puka Nacua, think to Jamar Chase, think to Justin Jefferson. These guys, they break out every year. And I can see Brian Thomas being that receiver this year. And I know it's a hot take, but that's why it's a hot take. I think Brian Thomas is going to finish inside the top 15 in PPR formats and be that guy for Trevor Lawrence this year. What do you guys think?
I love Brian Thomas. He's 6'4", 4.3 speed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I forgot to mention that. 4.34 speed.
That's a big dude moving, sprinting, and he's 6'4". In this offense, I feel like he's going to be in a role like Calvin Ridley was last season. I think Brian Thomas is going to have a better career than Calvin Ridley, I believe. I think Brian Thomas is going to be a really good player. I feel like he might start off slow. Jefferson started off slow for the first 3 games, then exploded onto the scene. I feel like he's a rookie, so it's going to take time. But I do see Brian Thomas going off later this season. I mean, he could go off the first game, but I feel like he's a rookie. He's going to take time, but once he does go off, it's game over from there.
I agree, 100%. Yeah.
Well, time to give a little bit of the opposite side because I know Isaiah is a big Brian Thomas, so he very much agrees with that take. I don't hate the top 15 PPR take. I mean, that's putting him above Debo though and everything. So I mean, it's a hot take. Almost as hot as the Amari Cooper one, I think. But I just see this offense still being dominated by Christian Kirk. I mean, Christian Kirk was hurt last year, but he was still eating up all the targets. I think Christian Kirk is going to be that alpha wide receiver one alongside Evan Ingram. I mean, Evan Ingram finished as a top 5 fantasy tight end last year, just taking out all the targets. I mean, they just completely dominated the targets, the receiving yards. And now that Calvin Ridley's gone, I think Christian Kirk just gets a bump. I mean, I'm more in on Christian Kirk than Brian Thomas. But, I mean, I get Brian Thomas is a great touchdown. He's red zone threat. He's big. He can move. Great prospect. I mean, what we saw him do in college. But, yeah, I mean, I don't hate the take. I prefer Christian Kirk or Evan Ingram in my starting lineup. But I can see Brian Thomas finishing as a top 15 PPR receiver.
Yeah.
I think like Christian Kirk is the PPR merchant. Like that is like when he's in, like he's running those short intermediate routes, and that is his role. Like he's not really a deep threat target. So I feel like he is like saying he probably might be more consistent than Brian Thomas. But again, Brian Thomas can go for have 4 catches for 125 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like he's just a big play, explosive guy that can run fast. So I feel like he can break the top off the defense and just run. And so that's why I think it's kind of different than Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk is good, but I think Trevor Lawrence will push it down the field a little bit. He's not going to be afraid. He wants to let it loose. I think Brian Thomas, and I know they have Gabe Davis there too. Gabe Davis is all right. But I feel like Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas are probably going to be pretty good friends in the future.
Yeah. And just looking at Brian Thomas's profile, I think he's just a taller Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase's rookie year came in the league. His first year, he wasn't a PPR monster. He was a touchdown and deep ball threat. He came in the league, had 81 catches for damn near 1,500 yards and 13 touchdowns. I can see Brian Thomas doing something similar to that this year. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's why it's a hot take. And that's why I think that Brian Thomas is that guy. Same school, coming in with a quarterback drafted number 1 overall. I mean, come on, guys. The parallels are too much here. I think that Brian Thomas is going to dominate this year.
Yeah, but okay, well, that's it for our episode 2. Make sure to comment down below whose hot take you agree with most.
And also comment down below some segments you guys want to see in the future. We'll get those going for you guys as well.
And we'll see you guys on Tuesday. Peace.
Peace, guys.